and welcome back to this video series on what is geography. I'm Dr. Heath Robinson, and we were just talking about the most basic question of geography, which is where. But we emphasized that even though where is the most basic of geographic questions, and sometimes it's easy to answer where a particular phenomenon is, and sometimes it's more difficult to answer where different things are, it is still the first question that we ask and not the last question that we ask. And so we want to go deeper into geographic inquiry. But before I go into deeper questions into geography, I want to back out for a moment and talk about how we classify human knowledge. Human knowledge is vast, right? All the things you can possibly know. So how do we go about trying to classify all of this stuff that humans have developed knowledge on? So in order to do that, I'm going to put up here on the screen a representation of all of human knowledge. Okay, how about that for a very simple and abstract representation of all of human knowledge? So as I just said, this is a very big subject, right? So it makes sense to go about trying to subdivide it in some way, right? We need to make sense of it. We need to divide this up somehow. Well, you might decide, if you wanted to go about subdividing this, to start carving it into chunks. Maybe you take one chunk out here and you call it, I don't know, anthropology. You take another chunk over here and say, hey, all of these things on this side are particularly similar, and so we'll call the study of them economics. We'll take another chunk and we'll call it sociology. We'll take another chunk and call it physics. And then just keep going like that. We'll just divide this into a whole bunch of different chunks. And this may appear to be a very natural way to think about dividing human knowledge, particularly in our society. It's certainly the case that when you come to a university, which, the university's sort of mission as a whole is to consider this whole broad range of human knowledge, covering everything you can know as a human being and everything we've discovered and everything that we will discover, right? But not everyone does everything, right? So we subdivide ourselves. And so you might think that, gee, we sort of cut ourselves into chunks here. Certainly, there are specialists in one area, specialists in anthropology, specialists in economics, and so forth. And so we group those people together into different departments. And so you come and study in the Department of Economics, or the Department of Anthropology, or the Department of Physics, and so forth. And so it may appear that all of human knowledge can be divided up into these chunks, right, that are sort of exclusive and you know exactly where everything fits. Well, I call this particular conceptualization of the division of human knowledge the edge method. Do you use sort of an edge method to dividing up all of human knowledge? You say, okay, so here's this particular line we see here between sociology and economics, and if you're studying something that's on this side of the line, then you're studying economics. If you're studying something on that side of the line, you're studying sociology. And this is sort of the boundary. This is the edge of what it means to study economics or philosophy or anthropology or any of the different departments that you find on a college campus. This particular conceptualization is not one that I subscribe to, and it's not really one that many people in geography in general subscribe to, and of course actually it's not one that many people at universities in general subscribe to. But it is sort of the way I think that a lot of people who come into a university conceptualize human knowledge, because particularly if you're in a very formalized institutional structure, there can be some institutional sort of rigidity between, okay, this is, one department and this is another department and so forth. And so it may appear that human knowledge is divided that way, but I don't think it is. And so what I want to do is share with you a different conceptualization of all of human knowledge that I subscribe to. I know many other people in geography subscribe to, and it's the conceptualization of human knowledge that I use in all of my classes, in all of my research projects, and really the way that I go about conceptualizing the world. And so this is sort of in opposition to this edge method of human knowledge, of dividing up human knowledge. Instead of saying that the limit of anthropology, the limit of political science, the limit of history, the limit of economics is here along these particular lines. Instead of saying that, we could still have all of these different disciplines, because it's very important to have people specializing in different aspects of human knowledge. But rather than conceptualizing that as an edge, we could start to conceptualize how we subdivide human knowledge into their centers. So instead of saying this is the limit of economics or anthropology, I'm just throwing all these out as different examples. Instead of saying these are the limits, we start to say this is the center of that particular subject. Okay, this is sort of the core of what it means to be an anthropologist, or what it means to study anthropology or economics or physics. And you start to conceptualize all these different things as a center. What are these things centered on? And I think this is an excellent way to conceptualize the subdivision of human knowledge. So in this particular conceptualization, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to consider, if you're doing a particular research project, oh, gee, is this economics or is it sociology? Is this history or is it philosophy? Is it history or philosophy or political science or economics? Because you're no longer concerned about any particular sharp edge like that. Because in the centroid conceptualization, there are no sharp edges between all of these subdivisions. There are only gradations between each one. Oh, this is more this subject than this subject. More this subject than this other subject. And then once you start to get away from the center, yes, you start to blend into the kinds of things that may be studied by other subjects. So instead of, okay, I'm studying this subject, and then all of a sudden, abruptly, now I'm studying something else, you've got this gradual transition, this transition area between different subjects. And let me tell you that it's very, very often the case, I've found anyway, that some of the most interesting things to study, some of the most interesting discoveries that can be made, don't happen just inside one particular discipline's core. You really start to find out some really interesting things once you're taking one subject and another subject and blending them all together and really studying stuff in that transitional area. And so if you did have this very hard, rigid conceptualization of disciplines by edges, then that could be conceptually problematic for you. But if instead you have this much more fluid kind of conceptualization of the way human knowledge goes, then it becomes no problem, right? It's no problem if you're studying something to me, if you're one of my students, if you're studying something and you start to get into something that might not be geography proper, and we'll talk about exactly what geography proper might be in a moment, but if you're studying something that, gee, am I not studying geography because I've started to bring in this particular economic theory or this particular philosophical approach? This is no problem at all. You start to blend all of these things together in these transitional zones and really discover some amazing things. I'm a political geographer and geographic information scientist, but I bring in all kinds of stuff from political science, from international law, especially from philosophy and ontology, information science. When I'm doing GIS, there's all kinds of things that I draw from because I don't want to limit myself. I don't conceptualize human knowledge as being full of edges. I see it as just a whole bunch of transitions and from one thing to another, from one center to another. And that's the approach that I use when I conceptualize this, and it's the approach that I would encourage you to use when you conceptualize human knowledge, when you're approaching all of your studies and when you're doing your own projects, and really when you're studying the world in general. I think that this is a fantastic way to approach human knowledge. So as I said, we want to talk about what geography is. This video series is about what is geography after all. But I wanted to establish this theoretical framework for approaching human knowledge first, because if you were expecting me to tell you what geography is, based on its boundary, based on that edge. Oh, if you're doing anything within this particular little confine, then you're doing geography, and as soon as you step outside that, you're no longer doing geography. I'm not, because that's not the way that I conceptualize human knowledge. Instead, what I want to do is talk about what geography is from this centroid perspective. What is the very center of geography?